In the last chapter of My Hero, we got to see what Stain's up to. Usually I tend to wait a couple of weeks while the chapters build up so I can kind of do like a slight conclusion for the little big arcs like I've done with the Izuku in Class 1A, with them dealing with the Class 1A trying to catch Izuku and stuff like that. This one I just kind of wanted to talk about on its own for chapter 326. It's called Who Are You? And it's basically Stain and All Might come face to face with each other. And I kind of wanted to talk about that because I made mention in a few of the other past couple of videos where, either talking about All Might himself or like what was going to happen with, well, we saw Stain next to All Might or, in the background by All Might, so what's going to happen? And I'm sure that some of us were probably like, oh, well, they're definitely, Stain's going to interact with All Might one way or the other. And we were correct. Those of us that thought that were correct. And I kind of figured that was going to happen. This is obviously not a katana type thing that Stain has. It's just my cutlass. It's the closest thing I had that would work because I have like styrofoam katanas, but they're like in the garage and not in good condition, and I don't really want to show them on camera. Plus, I don't know where they are in the garage. So basically, I just kind of wanted to talk about the chapter for 326. Who are you? So basically, the chapter starts off with, it's just after like All Might, or just after Izuku ran off from All Might, and then he goes off to go to try to fight, Dictator, and then fight, gets, caught and, worn out, and then kind of brought back to UA by the class. So this is like happening simultaneously with that. All Might is near the statue that's of himself. That is, I don't know if this is supposed to be a statue that was at Kamino Ward, because they did put up a statue at Kamino Ward because that's kind of where All Might fell, where his last battle was. Or if this is a different statue that's also just like somewhere else of All Might. But we see All Might there, and he's very sad at the moment, and he looks over at the statue, and the statue has a sign around that says, "I am not here," and then it's like X'd out around the statue's neck. And, this was put there by, it's stated to have been put there by the anti-hero civilians, civilian activists, liberation, well, not liberationists, but the anti-hero civilians that are just like, we've had it with heroes, we're just going to protect ourselves. And we've seen them a few times throughout the course of the story so far. They're just civilians that are just like, are fed up with, they bought into the whole thing of like, heroes can't protect us, so we'll just protect ourselves type of a thing. And what we see is All Might is standing there, and then he looks at the sun, he looks at it and he goes, "You could do nothing when your student was struggling." And it's just him, saying that to All Might, and he's just like, All Might is doing a lot of like soul searching at the moment. It's like, he's not quite the hero he used to be, obviously, because he can't use his quirk anymore. He doesn't have his quirk anymore, really. He can't fight anymore. He's got Hercules. He's got the cool car. He can drive around with that. He can give Izuku advice, but he couldn't even get Izuku to stop. It took Izuku's class to get him to stop and to get him to take a breather. And then we see Stain, and he's got his blade right in front of All Might's face. And he looks at him, and he's like, "Is that a slight against the heroes?" Because, of course, we all know Stain's backstory, or have a fairly good idea of his backstory. He was kind of a vigilante at one point, and then he kind of just got more twisted in the head, and he's like, the only real hero is All Might, so then I'm just going to kill all the rest of them. And, of course, as he states at the end of the chapter, he's killed 40 heroes. And he injured quite a few more. One of them, of course, being Tensei, Ida's brother. That, of course, resulted in the whole hero killer Stain art, where Izuku and Ida and Shoto fought against Stain and managed to stop him and capture him. and then he was in Tartarus. We saw him in Tartarus a few times when he was like there as a captive in Tartarus, and alongside, you know, All for One, and a few of the other Nomus that we've seen. And then when All for One, you know, had his giant breakout and everything, and all the rest of, you know, he's releasing all of these horrible villains into the world. He, you know, released Stain in the process, and Stain has now found his way to where All Might is. It's kind of left ambiguous as to whether or not Stain actually believes that this is All Might, because, you know, we understand that, you know, All Might fell after Stain was in Tartarus, and I highly doubt that they're kept up on the news in Tartarus. I highly doubt that they'll, like, bring Stain a piece of, like, a paper every now and then, or, like, playing the newsreels. It's like, this week in the news in the My Hero Academia world, you know, and, like, you know, All Might has fought against this horrible villain called All for One, and, you know, I can't do the old-time newscaster voice. But, you know, since Stain was in Tartarus, All Might has subsequently, you know, fought One for All and All for One, excuse me, has subsequently fought All for One, and he beat him, but he also took a large amount of damage, and it was revealed to the world that he was, you know, this shriveled up thing that he couldn't fight anymore, that he used up the last of his quirk. And you know, that was in regards to, like, saving Kachan and, like, you know, saving some of the people that were still in communal ward at the time. And what, of course, ends up happening is Stain doesn't know about this. Last time Stain saw All Might, he was still his big, imposing, you know, shining beacon of hope. And All Might, you know, doesn't really blame Stain for not recognizing him, and All Might, like, puffs himself up. You know, All Might explains to, you know, Stain, I am All Might, and then he, like, puffs himself up into his, you know, bigger form, and then he, like, puffs back down, and, like, Stain just, like, calls him a fake and a liar, and, like, you know, it's like, why are you, like, disturbing this, like, sacred ground, as in, like, the sacred ground where, like, All Might fell. I'm assuming that since Stain has escaped, he's probably found a way to get a hold of other information in regards to, oh, All Might had this battle, All Might fought against, you know, One for All for One, why do I keep doing that? Common mistake in this fandom. You know, that he had this huge battle, and, like, he did all this other stuff, and, you know, now he's retired, and, like, now Endeavor's the #1, and, like, I'm sure Stain is not the most sane man in the world, but he at least seems to be smart enough to understand. It's like, okay, I've been in prison for several months now. I should probably look up what's been going on in the world, and see what else has changed. Besides the fact of, Hero Society is collapsing. Well, that's not good. You know, and see what he does there, and, like, get an idea of what's been going on. I mean, you know, that just seems to be like something that Stain would do. Or at the very least, see what's been going on with All Might. Maybe not, like, the hero world as a whole, but at least what's been going on with All Might. And we actually get the story. This chapter actually has quite a few good speeches in it, or monologues in it, by both Stain and All Might. And I hate saying this, but Stain makes some good points. Please don't take that out of context. But, you know, the whole, you know, Stain's whole philosophy type thing was, you know, All Might is this real hero. And he saw that Deku, when they had their fight, also had those makings of a real hero. And that there was something there. And that, you know, Stain protected, you know, Deku from the Nomu. When the Nomu tried to take Deku, Stain protected him. And, you know, he was still captured and everything. We don't 100% know where Stain still falls on Deku, but we'll see what happens. And I just figured I wanted to point this out. This shirt is Darth Vader. It says "Free Throat Hugs." Has not much to do with the video, but I wanted to wear a shirt that had a villain on it, and I had Darth Vader. But what we see happen, of course, in, you know, throughout the chapter is, of course, it's, you know, Stain kind of like confronting All Might, and Stain does not believe that this is All Might. He calls him a fake, as I said, and All Might kind of basically has this speech where he's like, yeah, I kind of guess I am a fake. For the longest time, I just can't figure, I've had this feeling of being unable to do anything. And like we get these flashbacks of like All Might when he was young, and him probably going into the same type of a situation where like Izuku did, where he just like he saw Kacchan in trouble with the sludge villain and he just rushed in. And All Might went through something probably similar, maybe not his friend in trouble, but like someone in trouble, and he just couldn't permit this to keep going on, and he ran in, and like Nana probably saw this the way that All Might saw this with Izuku. And Nana, of course, then, talked to him, and she liked what he had to say about, like, this world needs a symbol, this world needs something to help keep it going. And, Izuku and the other, Izuku and All Might are very similar in that regard. They're both quirkless, and their feet moved before their brain even figured out what was going on, because someone was in trouble. And, All Might wanted to make the world a better place and everything, even though he was powerless, he still wanted to help make the world better. And, but then and then we see like him kind of doing this realization of like, but I couldn't even protect the student that I promised I was going to protect. Which this goes back to the promise that All Might made to Inko when, he was trying to convince her to let Izuku come and live at the dorms. He's like, I will die to protect Izuku. And of course, her thing to him is like, don't die. Live to protect my son. And, that's the promise that All Might made, is that, he's going to protect Izuku. And that, that applies to the rest of the class too, but specifically to Izuku. And All Might doesn't feel like he's been able to live up to that promise for the last couple of months. I mean, yeah, he's been helping help Izuku get around, giving him information, bringing him food, the bento boxes and everything, but he hasn't been able to get Izuku to rest. And particularly in this last time, he was trying to get Izuku to rest so that way, get him to sleep, take a bath, eat something, but Izuku wouldn't, and he left All Might. And that was kind of hard to read. And in the anime, that'll probably just be one of the moments where it's like, no, Izuku, go back. Go back. Don't make All Might sad. Sad Might is not a good thing. But, I don't know if All Might knows at this point in time that, Izuku has, he's at UA. Well, this is kind of happening concurrently with, Izuku dealing with, where Class 1A is trying to, catch Izuku and stuff like that. This is kind of happening concurrently with that, I think. We do get a flash in the chapter where we see All Might and Izawa talking, and, Izawa's just, come and live with us, come and live at the school and, help that way and everything. You've done enough type of a thing, everything that you've done enough for the world. To warrant the ability to rest. But of course, that's not the way that All Might is. He's like, okay, so I can't physically fight anymore, but I can still be a teacher, and I can still help Izuku with being able to understand his quirk better. And, so that's what he was doing with, the hero notes studies book that he was making. There was all these different notes about the different heroes and everything, that have had, One for All. And him training with Izuku and training with Kacchan to help Izuku get better with his quirk and with the other quirks that are coming down the pipeline for him at the time. So we've seen a lot of that. And, All Might is also but I'm getting further and further away from the hero that I used to be, that I once was. And, he sees the statue and everything. And Stain is there just listening, and Stain still looks insane, he did anyway. I made when I was explaining what Stain looked like to my coworker, who's his kids are my age, so he has a rough idea of what anime is. But I was Well, Sane's kind of insane, and he kind of looks like Voldemort in the fact that he has no nose. Um, and Jess is just like, okay, fair enough. Um, but I mean, yeah, Satan doesn't really have much of a nose, and Voldemort doesn't really have much of a nose by the end of it. But of course, what ends up happening is Stain kind of lunges at All Might, and he pulls him to the side behind a bunch of this rubble that's there, because it's like rubble from like other fights or battles that have happened. And he pulls him behind this rubble, and he points All Might's head around the corner to see this woman come over to the statue, and she uses her quirk to get up to the statue. I think her quirk like just, it looks like she's able to like produce like bubbles from her feet or something. We don't get to see too much of what the quirk can do. I apologize for all the edits in the video. My allergies have decided to go, nope, you're gonna like have to sneeze every 5 minutes now. Oh joy. But what ends up happening is, this woman like uses her quirk. Like, as I said, she can like produce bubbles from her feet, and like she, stacks up the bubbles and is able to get to the top of the sign. And Stain apparently has been like hanging out in this area for a little while because he's seen this woman come and go for the past several days. And she's starting to like clean off the statue. She takes the sign off. She starts to wipe off a bunch of the paint and everything that's on there that like people have been spray painting the statue with. And All Might's just kind of watching her, and he's like, who is she? And Stain's like, every day she comes by to clean the statue from the anti-hero civilian vandalism. She's probably staying in a nearby evacuation shelter. She's most likely doing this to maintain the peace within the shelter she's staying at. And All Might's like, but why would she put herself in that sort of danger? Like, there's lots of other villains and other people out here running around right now. Her coming here, and doing that just puts her in a lot of danger. So I was like, who is she? And Stain says, she's the last person that All Might saved. And we're getting callbacks to like characters that we haven't seen for like hundreds of chapters, because, in like the last chapter, we got to see that, the guy with the pointy shuriken stars on his head that was like, let's let the kid come into the school and everything. And we haven't seen him all the way since like chapter 1. And then this woman, during the communal ward battle, when, All Might's fighting, all for one, he blocks this attack that's going to hit this woman that's like trapped in the rubble. And we see this woman, she's just, All Might help me and everything, and this is that same woman. So we're just getting like we're going to throw out this other random character that we haven't seen for like, 100-some chapters or more. And we see this woman, and she seems to be doing fine. She's like cleaning off the statue and everything, and All Might remembers her. And she was saved from the rubble. Like, I think it's Tiger comes over from the Wild Pussycats. He comes over and like helps get her to safety and everything. So that way All Might doesn't have to worry about defending her while he's fighting, One for All. And, and then of course he's able to defeat One for All and everything, as I mentioned earlier in the chapter, or earlier in the video. But what ends up happening is this is that last person that he saved. And, she comes here to clean off the statue every single day. Mm-hmm. And what ends up happening is, we see All Might's just like watching this woman, and Stain explains to him. As I said, Stain to a degree has a lot of has some good speeches in this chapter, and a lot of them are very much, I was like, which one of these do I want to use for the end quote, because they're all really good, so we'll see which one I use. But this one, okay, so the next quote that he says while he's talking and like looking at All Might, like watching the woman clean off the statue and everything, and we get like flashes of like other things throughout this quote. He's like, All Might always kept a smile on his face and set out to protect the people. It had nothing to do with his quirk. The man known as All Might dedicated his entire life to preserving our peace. The belief engraved in his very soul was what we extolled. We don't even hold a candle to all. You don't even hold a candle to All Might. Just look at her. The result? It's not over yet. The cinders of the cinders that he left continue to burn within those who followed after, oblivious to the rain or wind, and now they are forming into a great fire. And so we must not let that flame die. As long as we live, we must continue to stroke that flame, no matter how pitiful our struggles may be. And Satan has a point. Like, we see this image of, like, this woman there in the center with, like, her cleaning off the statue, but then we see, like, the images of, like, all the students from, like, class 1A and everything, Izuku, Shoto, Kacha, all of them are there in the background. And it's this moment of, yeah, there's this woman, and she's, it's like this small axe type of a thing, but then there's also the students and the teachers and the other heroes. And, that they just want everything to go back to not normal, but better than it had been. They don't want villains around because, as I said, Hawks doesn't want villains around because he wants it to be a world where, like, heroes have more, time to relax. It doesn't stop there from being heroes. Doesn't mean there's not going to be other villains, but giving heroes more time to relax. And, giving the students more of a time to be kids, as opposed to having to focus on, like, every week there's this new threat that you got to deal with, this new villain, this new bad guy, this new thing, whatever the case may be. Let them be kids. Let them be, let the heroes that are parents get to be parents. Let the younger heroes still get to go and spend time with their families or spend time with their spouses or whatever the case may be. That's more where Hawks is coming from it, but it's also Stain is trying to point out the fact that, yeah, All Might left these cinders, these little bitty embers that are going to keep growing into this fire. And as the fire grows, it's just going to spread more hope, more belief, more, more good acts, small acts build. And, Stain, whether or not he necessarily believes that all of Class 1A is, like, worthy of it, at the moment, they're the ones that are trying to make the world better. Not because of money, not because of fame, not because of glory, not because of having their own statue, but because it's the right thing to do. And, it's... I don't know what to say with that. It's like, you don't want to agree with the villain, but you kind of got to in this case. And it's just like, the bad guy has good points, and I don't like saying that, but he has good points. And what ends up happening is, of course, Stain, All Might kept thinking that Stain was going to, like, attack him, like slice him or, paralyze him or whatever the case may be. But All Might even has, like, the thought, it was like, I didn't sense any bloodlust from him at all throughout this entire thing. Yeah, he has the ability to, physically he could obviously quite easily overpower All Might. I could probably physically overpower, Toshin, skinny All Might, but I don't want to. But, Stain probably very easily could, with the fact that he is, very well trained in, like, martial arts and sword fighting and everything. Plus he has his paralyzation quirk where he can, get your blood like it, and then you're paralyzed for however a certain amount of time depending on your blood type. And, Stain doesn't seem to actually want to hurt All Might. I think he's on the cusp of, like, okay, obviously this is the guy that used to be All Might, but it's like, you don't even hold a candle to All Might anymore. You're not who that statue represented. Maybe you once were, but that's not what you are now, type of a thing. And, it's just this moment where Stain gets ready to walk away from him, gets ready to walk away from All Might, and he's like, heroes only exist for the sake of, I think it's order. But if a god has fallen from grace and gained the heart of a weak man, or maybe, and, it's like, Stain's just like, I don't really know if I do believe that you are All Might, but he like tosses this information on the ground with like his like one of his daggers in it. Like, take that information. It's from Tartarus. You know, give it to the heroes if you are a real hero. Give it to the heroes. You know, stuff about, you know, probably stuff in there about, you know, All for One, and you know what his plan is, or like maybe where he's hiding, or whatever the case may be. And then, you know, come and end me when this is all finished. I've murdered 40 heroes. You know, so everything is for the sake of everything is for the sake of a just society. Not so much, you know, wanting to see All Might kill anyone again, but yeah, no, Stain deserves to be locked up. And we'll see what happens. So he gave this information to All Might. All Might's options are either A, drive to UA and like give the information to Nezu and, you know, Endeavor and them and everything, so that way when Deku is better, they can then go and, you know, go after, you know, One for All, and, you know, save him, or, you know, go after All for One and, you know, defeat him and, you know, stop Tomura, save Tomura, whatever the case may be. You know, we'll see what happens with that. And, you know, the woman's still there and she's like cleaning off the statue the rest of the way, and the rain kind of stops. And the rain has been going for a while. With, you know, we've seen Izuku running around in the rain. The whole fight that happened with Class 1A against Izuku took place in the rain. Izuku, you know, then trying to get Izuku into UA with all the crowd and everything, that took place in the rain. Most of the conversation between Stain and All Might took place in the rain, and now the rain is beginning to stop and starting to lift, and the clouds are starting to open up. Yeah, it's, you know, metaphor for like, okay, we got some light coming in here. We got some hope coming in here. We'll see what happens with this. You know, they'll probably end up doing something where like Stain goes off, and, you know, later on Izuku or the class will go after him, and like they'll stop him, and like he'll get, you know, either he'll end himself, or maybe he'll show up and help to try to defeat, you know, One for All, or All for One. We'll see what happens with that. I don't think so much that one, but All Might's probably going to take the information and go to Nezu and give the information to him and to Endeavor, so that way they can work on a battle plan to go up against, you know, the rest of the remaining members of the League and the Middle Liberation Army and everything. So we'll see what happens with that. Stain will probably show back up, as I said, and he'll probably get captured or killed. One of the two. We'll see. You know, I don't know what to say about Stain. This is kind of a little look into Stain's mind. He's obviously not sane by any degree, given the fact of how many people he's killed for the sake of like, oh, you're not a real hero. I'm like, they put for like, Ingenium, from everything we've seen, from what we've seen in Vigilantes, from what we've seen of him from like flashbacks we get with Ida and everything, Ingenium Tensei was a very good hero. He saved people, he would, you know, protect them. He, you know, he wasn't doing it for the glory of being a hero. He did it because he wanted to protect people. Whereas, you know, yeah, some of the other students or some of the other, you know, heroes, they became heroes just for the fame and everything, but you want, you know, you also have to want to protect people. You know, All Might wanted to protect people. You know, so many of the other heroes that we've seen want to protect people. They don't do it for the glory of it. Yeah, okay, yeah, they do get endorsements. They do get good deals on stuff. They do get money from this. They do get endorsements from that. They do get this. They do get that. They do have media appearances. They do, you know, all this other stuff. But they also save people. And that is the main point of being a hero. They save people from villains. They stop the villains. They rescue people from natural disasters, or like help take care of people after they get, you know, hurt by villains. They heal people. They give them hope. They do all of this stuff. They take care of the community. And it's just like all these different aspects of being a hero. And I've actually already recorded the video where I talk about the different aspects of being a hero. And it'll be coming up down the line. But all these aspects go into being a hero. And Stain kind of took it that like, oh, if you're a hero, you shouldn't be doing it for the money of things. You shouldn't be then taking like all of this money from being a hero. It's like, okay, that's your opinion, but these heroes also have families they have to take care of. They also have other charities that they donate to, other things like that. I can guarantee you that All Might has a fair amount of money stashed away somewhere. You know, that money might be going to different charities. He probably spent a lot on his surgeries, of course, but with all of the endorsement deals and everything that All Might had, he still has a lot of money left over. You could not tell me All Might does not have money somewhere. You know, a fair amount of money somewhere. Just, you know, waiting for him to use it if he needed, or if he, you know, like gives it to Izuku or something like that. You know, maybe he helped with the upgrades at UA. Maybe some of that came out of his money too. You know, him and Nezu worked with that. But I can guarantee you that All Might has money. And Stain doesn't seem to knock All Might for that. But he'll knock all the other heroes for like, oh, you took a paycheck because you took down that villain. Yeah, I also have bills to pay and a family to take care of. Why shouldn't I take a paycheck? But, you know, Stain's opinions on what qualifies as a hero are a little bit different than, you know, what we would think of. Because, like, you know, we pay police officers, we pay, you know, government workers, we pay the fire department. Why shouldn't we pay heroes? In that sense of that world, you know, why wouldn't you pay the heroes? And then if they have endorsements, that's fine. You know, I see no problem with that. But, you know, Stain's mind is a little bit different than that. So, that's what we have for that. We'll see what happens next for my hero. I don't know what'll happen next. You know, my money is on Stain, or All Might's going to take money to Stain, or not take money to Stain. That was wrong. Take the information Stain gave him and take it to the school and give it to Nezu and Endeavor, so that way the students and the heroes can work on a plan and everything to then go after and defeat the rest of the league, and hopefully try to start getting, you know, the you know, Japan a little bit more stable, and then they can start rebuilding from there. There'll probably still be like at least one more giant battle in regards to that, with like all of the students working together. We'll see how that goes, but that's what we got. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Let's do this. I believe in you.